Imagine living your entire life trying to make everyone happy, constantly bending, adjusting, and sacrificing your own peace just to keep others comfortable. You wake up worried about what people think, you hesitate before speaking your truth, and you carry the heavy weight of wanting to be liked by everyone. But here's a truth few people ever realize. The more you try to please others, the more invisible you become to yourself. Bruce Lee once said, "I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you're not in this world to live up to mine." That is not arrogance, that is freedom. The day you stop chasing validation and start building self-respect is the day you begin to live as your true self. You were not born to please. You were born to express. You were not born to follow. You were born to lead yourself. Let's explore 7 powerful lessons that will help you stop pleasing everyone and start respecting yourself, because that is where real strength begins. 1. Stop living for their approval. Most people don't realize how much of their life is quietly controlled by the need to please others. They wear masks every day, pretending to be fine when they're exhausted, agreeing to things they don't want to do, forcing smiles when their soul is heavy, all just to be accepted. This constant performance becomes a prison. You start to shape your words, your choices, and even your dreams around what others might think of you. But Bruce Lee taught that the first duty of a warrior is not to please the crowd, it is to be true to himself. When you live for approval, you hand your power to others. You start to depend on their praise for happiness, and their criticism becomes your downfall. You begin to chase validation instead of truth. Every like, every compliment, every kind word becomes a temporary fix for a deeper emptiness inside. But once that praise fades, you're left wondering who you are without it. That's why living for approval is so dangerous. It makes you a stranger to yourself. Bruce Lee's philosophy reminds us that authenticity is the foundation of freedom. When you choose yourself, you no longer wait for the world to clap before you feel worthy. You find peace in your own truth. You realize that it's better to walk alone with integrity than to walk with a crowd that demands your silence. People's opinions change like the wind. One day they love you, the next they forget you. But when your self-worth comes from within, it cannot be taken away. So stop apologizing for being who you are. Stop bending to make others comfortable. Start saying yes only when your heart agrees, and say no without guilt when your peace is at risk. When you stop performing for others and start living for yourself, you will feel something you've never felt before. Freedom. Approval is temporary, but self-respect lasts forever. And when you respect yourself, you attract the kind of people who see your truth and value it. Not because you tried to please them, but because you finally chose to be real. 2, people respect you when you respect yourself. Respect doesn't come from demanding it. It comes from embodying it. The way you treat yourself silently teaches others how to treat you. If you constantly belittle yourself, tolerate disrespect, or stay silent when your boundaries are crossed, you send a message that says, "I don't deserve better," and the world listens. People sense your energy before they hear your words. They can tell when you're confident in who you are, and they can tell when you're desperate to be liked. Bruce Lee often said that a warrior carries his discipline in his posture, his presence, and his silence. You don't have to shout to be respected. You simply have to live with clarity and strength. Respect begins the moment you stop seeking it from others and start giving it to yourself. When you take care of your body, protect your peace, and honor your principles, you build a foundation of self-worth that cannot be shaken. People notice that. They may not always say it, but they feel it. There's a quiet power in someone who knows their value, someone who doesn't need approval, attention, or validation to feel whole. Think about it. The more you chase respect, the less you get it. But the moment you stop chasing and start living with purpose, people naturally begin to respect you because they see you stand firm in your truth. They see you walk away from drama, speak only when necessary, and act with integrity even when no one is watching. That's real strength. It's not about ego. It's about alignment. Bruce Lee once said, "Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do." That means it's not enough to talk about confidence. You must live it through your choices. If you want others to value your time, stop wasting it on people who don't. If you want others to listen to you, stop over-explaining yourself to those who've already decided not to understand. If you want others to respect your boundaries, enforce them calmly but firmly. When you begin to treat yourself with dignity, you no longer beg for respect. You command it without words. You walk differently. You speak differently. You no longer tolerate energy that drains you or situations that make you shrink. You stop apologizing for being real. And that's when people begin to notice something different about you. An energy of quiet confidence. A strength that doesn't need validation. Because the truth is, the world mirrors your self-image. When you see yourself as powerful, others start to see it too. Respect isn't about making people fear you. It's about making them feel your strength without you having to say a word. So walk with self-respect, speak with self-respect, live with self-respect, because when you respect yourself first, the world has no choice but to follow your lead. 3. Don't be afraid to disappoint others. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning to live without the constant need to please everyone. From a young age, we're taught to be agreeable, polite, and accommodating, even when it hurts us. We grow up believing that making others happy is the same as being a good person. But what no one tells you is that this constant need to please slowly kills your spirit. You begin to sacrifice your peace for other people's comfort. You say yes when you mean no. You go along with things that feel wrong just to avoid conflict. And every time you do that, a small part of your authenticity fades away. Bruce Lee believed that strength is not just physical, it's the courage to live truthfully. He understood that a warrior cannot be bound by the opinions of others. To walk your own path means you will have to disappoint some people. You will lose friends, you will upset family members, and you will confuse those who want you to stay small. But that's the price of growth. The truth is, you can either live to keep everyone happy or live to fulfill your purpose. You can't do both. When you start saying no to what drains you, people who benefited from your silence will get angry. When you set boundaries, people who were used to crossing them will call you selfish. But remember this, disappointing others is temporary. Disappointing yourself is permanent. The discomfort of saying no lasts for a moment, but the regret of betraying your own heart can last for years. Bruce Lee once said, "If you always put limits on what you can do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life." Pleasing others is one of those limits. It keeps you trapped in a cycle where your value depends on other people's moods. You become addicted to their approval, terrified of their rejection. But freedom begins the moment you stop fearing disapproval. Because when you stop needing permission to live your life, you start to actually live. There's power in saying no, not with anger, but with clarity. There's power in walking away from conversations that drain your spirit, from relationships that take more than they give, from people who only show up when they need something. You are not here to carry everyone's expectations on your back. You are here to honor the truth that lives inside you. When you choose to disappoint others to stay true to yourself, something incredible happens. You start attracting people who respect your boundaries. You create space for authentic relationships, built not on fear or obligation, but on mutual understanding and respect. You no longer feel exhausted trying to keep up with everyone else's version of you. You become real. Bruce Lee's philosophy of detachment applies here perfectly. Detach from the need to be liked, from the illusion that everyone must understand you. The right people won't need you to shrink. The wrong people will leave when you stop serving their comfort, and that's how you know you're finally growing. So don't be afraid to disappoint others. Be afraid of losing yourself in the process of pleasing them. You were not born to live according to someone else's expectations. You were born to create your own path, to walk your own rhythm, to breathe your own truth. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. What matters most is that you understand yourself, because peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from living honestly. 4. Your energy is sacred. Protect it. Your energy is your life force. It is the invisible current that powers your thoughts, actions, and emotions. Yet most people give it away carelessly. They spend it on people who drain them, on arguments that don't matter, on chasing validation that never satisfies. Every time you engage with negativity, every time you allow toxic people to occupy your mind, you leak energy, and slowly you become tired, not because you've worked hard on your dreams, but because you've carried too much emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. Bruce Lee often spoke about the importance of preserving one's energy. To him, energy wasn't just physical stamina. It was spiritual strength. He believed that what you give attention to expands. So if you constantly feed your energy into worry, drama, or people who disrespect your peace, you're building a life that reflects those very things. But if you choose to protect your energy and channel it into growth, creativity, and inner peace, your life begins to transform from the inside out. Your energy is sacred because it shapes your reality. The people you allow into your circle either recharge you or drain you. The conversations you engage in either uplift you or lower your vibration. That's why protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's survival. Just like a fighter guards his stance, you must guard your peace. Not everyone deserves access to your time, your mind, or your heart. Some people come into your life to teach you the importance of closing the door with love, not hate. Bruce Lee said, "It's not the daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential." That's the art of energy protection, letting go of what is unnecessary. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to respond to every insult or explain yourself to people who've already decided not to understand. Silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. When you stop reacting to every provocation, you conserve power. You rise above chaos instead of sinking into it. Think of your energy like water. When it's calm, it reflects the sky. When it's disturbed, everything becomes blurry. Your peace allows you to see life clearly. That's why you must learn to say no without guilt, to walk away without explaining, to rest without feeling lazy. The world glorifies hustle, but forgets that true power comes from stillness. Bruce Lee's philosophy of being like water was never about being passive. It was about being adaptable, flexible, yet unshakably grounded. When your mind is calm, your movements become precise. When your energy is balanced, your decisions become powerful. Protecting your energy also means setting emotional boundaries. You cannot heal in the same environment that breaks you. You cannot grow around people who constantly drain you with negativity, gossip, or judgment. Protect your peace from noise. Protect your dreams from those who laugh at them. Protect your focus from distractions disguised as opportunities. Every time you choose peace over reaction, you're training your spirit to stay strong. Remember, not everyone is meant to understand your journey. Some will misunderstand your silence. Others will label your distance as arrogance. But that's okay. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your soul. The same people who drain you will eventually respect the boundaries you enforce. Bruce Lee lived by a principle of efficiency, to use energy only where it matters most. In life, this means directing your focus toward what truly matters, your purpose, your growth, your inner clarity. Every moment wasted on negativity is a moment stolen from your greatness. So take back your energy. Withdraw it from anything that makes you feel small. Give it to what nourishes your soul. Spend it on peace, not conflict, on self-discipline, not self-doubt. You'll notice that once you protect your energy, you stop attracting chaos because your vibration rises, and those who once fed on your weakness will no longer recognize your strength. Protect your energy like a sacred flame, because once it burns out, it takes a long time to reignite. Guard it with awareness, feed it with purpose, and let it light the path toward your higher self. In that calm, steady fire of self-respect, you will discover what Bruce Lee called the true essence of life. Energy that flows, but never falls. 5. Pleasing others is fear disguised as kindness. There's a subtle kind of fear that hides behind a smile, the fear of being disliked, rejected, or abandoned. Many people mistake it for kindness, but it's not kindness, it's people-pleasing. It's when you say yes because you're afraid to say no. It's when you sacrifice your peace just to keep someone else comfortable. It's when you silence your truth so you don't upset anyone. This is not love, and it's not compassion. It's fear wearing the mask of goodness. Bruce Lee understood this deeply. He believed that true kindness comes from strength, not weakness. When you act from fear, your actions lose authenticity. You give to others, but secretly feel empty inside. You help people, but quietly resent it later. You smile, but it doesn't come from peace. It comes from the terror of being seen as unkind. And over time, this habit eats away at your confidence. You start believing your worth depends on how happy other people are with you. But Bruce Lee taught that a warrior cannot move through life bound by fear. He said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." This wasn't just about fighting. It was about focus and truth. A warrior must practice honesty the way he practices a strike, with precision, discipline, and courage. You can't master yourself if you're afraid of disappointing people. Every time you choose comfort over truth, you weaken your spirit. People-pleasing seems harmless at first. You tell yourself you're just being nice, that you don't want conflict. But slowly, you become addicted to being seen as good. You lose your ability to say no without guilt. You overextend yourself trying to make everyone happy, and then you wonder why you feel drained and unseen. Because the truth is, no matter how much you do for others, it will never be enough for everyone. There will always be someone who wants more, and if you keep trying to please them all, you'll lose yourself entirely. True kindness, on the other hand, is born from strength. It's when you help someone not because you're scared to say no, but because you genuinely want to. It's when you speak your truth with compassion, not silence your truth out of fear. Bruce Lee's "be like water" philosophy fits perfectly here. Water flows naturally, without forcing, without pretending. It doesn't twist itself to fit into shapes that don't belong to it. It simply becomes what it must be. That's how you must live, not bending out of fear, but flowing with authenticity. When your kindness comes from fear, it becomes manipulation. You're not helping because you want to. You're helping because you want approval. You're not agreeing because it feels right. You're agreeing because you don't want conflict. And that's not love, that's control. You're trying to control how others see you, even if it means betraying your own truth. But when your kindness comes from strength, it's pure. You can give freely because your cup is full. You can love deeply because you love yourself first. Think of this. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you teach people to ignore your boundaries. Every time you put yourself last, you show others that your needs don't matter. Eventually, your silence becomes your identity. People stop asking what you want because they assume you'll always adjust. That's the tragedy of fear disguised as kindness. It turns you invisible. Bruce Lee believed that self-awareness is the path to freedom. He said, "To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person." That means you must observe how you behave around others. Do you change your tone to avoid conflict? Do you agree just to keep the peace? Do you apologize even when you've done nothing wrong? These are signs that fear is running your life. And the only way to break free is to practice honesty, gentle but firm honesty, every single day. Start small. The next time you feel pressured to agree, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or fear? If it's fear, step back. You don't owe anyone an instant answer. You don't have to explain your every decision. Real kindness doesn't require self-betrayal. When you begin to act from truth, something magical happens. The people who only loved you for your compliance will start to fade away, but the ones who truly respect you will stay, and they will love you more deeply because now you're real. You're no longer giving from emptiness. You're giving from fullness. That is the highest form of kindness. Bruce Lee's philosophy reminds us that fear is a prison and authenticity is the way out. Stop calling your fear kindness. Stop labeling your silence peace. Kindness without self-respect is self-destruction. Real compassion begins when you honor yourself first, when your giving doesn't drain you but strengthens you. So the next time you feel that pull to please, remember, love that requires you to shrink isn't love, it's fear. And you were never meant to live small. Live boldly, speak truthfully, be kind, but never at the cost of your soul. That's how a true warrior moves through life, not by pleasing everyone, but by walking in truth, even if he walks alone. 6. The more you choose yourself, the better you become for others. Most people are raised to believe that putting themselves first is selfish. They're taught that real goodness means sacrifice, giving endlessly, even when they have nothing left to give. But this belief destroys more lives than it saves. Because when you constantly pour into others while neglecting yourself, you don't become noble. You become empty. You become tired, resentful, and quietly disconnected from your own spirit. You give, but your giving loses meaning because it comes from exhaustion, not strength. Bruce Lee understood this truth long before the world did, that choosing yourself first doesn't mean rejecting others. It means strengthening yourself so you can truly give from a place of power. When you choose yourself, you begin to build an inner foundation that cannot be shaken by circumstances or people's opinions. You stop looking to others for direction and validation. You begin to make choices that align with your deepest truth, not what others expect from you. This is not arrogance. It's awareness. It's knowing that you can't light anyone else's path if your own fire has burned out. Bruce Lee once said, "The successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus." Focus starts with the self. When your attention is scattered on everyone else's needs, you lose sight of your own path. But when you focus inward, on your growth, your purpose, your peace, you become more balanced, more patient, and ultimately more useful to the world around you. Think of a tree. The stronger its roots, the more shade it can offer. But if the roots are weak, the whole tree collapses under pressure. The same is true for your life. When you ignore your own needs just to please others, your roots weaken. You may appear kind on the surface, but beneath that, you're falling apart. Choosing yourself doesn't mean abandoning people. It means nurturing your roots so you can stand tall through every storm. It means learning when to say no, when to rest, when to recharge your spirit. When you do, you stop giving from survival and start giving from strength. Bruce Lee believed that mastery over the self was the foundation of mastery over life. He said, "To control yourself means to control your emotions, your fears, and your actions. That is true power." When you choose yourself, you reclaim control of your energy. You begin to live intentionally. You no longer react out of guilt or obligation. You respond from clarity. You realize that love and self-respect are not opposites. They are partners. The more you love yourself, the more love you have to give without conditions. The world teaches you to exhaust yourself for others, but it rarely teaches you how to rebuild your energy. You become the friend who's always available, the family member who never says no, the worker who never takes a break, until one day you wake up and realize you've lost the spark that once made you alive. That's why choosing yourself is not optional, it's essential. When you take care of your body, your mind, and your soul, you bring better energy into everything you do. Your presence becomes calm, your actions become meaningful. People start to feel peace around you, not because you're forcing it, but because you've cultivated it within yourself. It's a myth that choosing yourself makes you distant. In truth, it makes you more compassionate. When you understand your own pain, you understand others' pain better. When you stop expecting others to fill your emptiness, you love them for who they are, not for what they can give you. That's the beauty of self-respect. It creates healthy relationships based on honesty, not dependency. Bruce Lee's philosophy of balance applies perfectly here. He believed in harmony, not extremes. He trained relentlessly but rested when needed. He pushed his limits but stayed grounded. He taught that strength without stillness leads to burnout, and stillness without action leads to stagnation. Life is about rhythm, giving and receiving, pushing and pausing, loving others while remembering to love yourself. When you choose yourself, you also start attracting the right people, those who respect your boundaries and share your values. You no longer chase relationships built on guilt or obligation. You begin to connect with people who want to see you rise, not drain your energy. That's the magic of alignment. When you honor yourself, the world around you starts to align with that same vibration. Don't mistake self-prioritization for selfishness. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about realizing you matter too. It's about giving yourself the same compassion you give everyone else. You can't inspire others by destroying yourself. The most powerful leaders, teachers, and healers are those who first learn to lead, teach, and heal themselves. Bruce Lee once said, "As you think, so shall you become." When your thoughts are centered around guilt, exhaustion, and self-sacrifice, your energy becomes weak and scattered. But when your thoughts come from confidence, self-respect, and peace, your energy becomes magnetic. You draw strength from within, and that strength naturally overflows into everything you touch. So choose yourself, not because others don't matter, but because you do. Fill your cup before pouring into others. Take time to grow, to rest, to learn, to evolve. Be kind but firm. Give, but don't lose yourself in giving. The more grounded you are in who you are, the more deeply you can love, guide, and inspire the people around you. Choosing yourself is not rejection. It's preparation. It's becoming the strongest, clearest, and most peaceful version of yourself. So when you give light, not leftovers. And that's the secret Bruce Lee lived by. The better you are for yourself, the better you become for the world. 7. Choosing yourself is the ultimate freedom. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize they have been living for others far too long. Living by their rules, their opinions, their expectations. You wear the clothes others like, chase the dreams others think are right for you, speak the words that won't offend anyone, and live a version of yourself that keeps everyone happy but leaves you empty. That moment of realization can feel painful, like waking up after years of sleep, but it's also the moment when your true freedom begins. Bruce Lee said, "Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own." That's not just a martial arts principle, it's a philosophy for life. Choosing yourself means letting go of everything that isn't truly you. Freedom doesn't begin when you have money, status, or approval. Freedom begins when you stop needing permission to be who you are. It begins when you no longer shape your choices around fear of judgment or rejection. You stop performing and start living. You stop waiting for others to validate your worth and start defining it yourself. Most people never reach this stage, not because they can't, but because they're afraid. Afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of standing alone, afraid that if they stop pleasing everyone, they'll end up with no one. But here's the truth Bruce Lee understood. Solitude is not a punishment. It's where your strength is built. When you choose yourself, you stop being a prisoner to opinions. You start to understand that people's judgments reflect their own insecurities, not your truth. Bruce Lee faced criticism throughout his life for his ideas, his methods, his refusal to conform to Western or Eastern expectations. Yet he never changed himself to fit the world. He made the world adapt to him. That's what freedom looks like. It's not rebellion for the sake of ego. It's the quiet confidence to walk your own path, even when no one else understands it. Choosing yourself is not about isolation, it's about alignment. It's about knowing what deserves your time, your love, and your energy, and having the courage to walk away from what doesn't. You realize that not everything and everyone is meant to stay. Some people are chapters, not lifelong companions. Some opinions are noise, not truth. When you stop clinging to them, life becomes lighter. You begin to move with peace instead of pressure. Bruce Lee said, "The possession of anything begins in the mind." Freedom is a mental state before it becomes a physical one. When you stop letting guilt and expectation control your thoughts, you reclaim your mind. And when your mind is free, no one can enslave you, not society, not fear, not your past. The world may still try to label you, but labels can't stick to someone who knows their worth. Think about how many people live as prisoners to their own image. They constantly edit themselves to fit what others want to see. They avoid risk because they fear failure. They stay quiet when their soul wants to speak. They work jobs they hate, maintain friendships that drain them, and live lives that feel small, all because they're scared to disappoint others. That's not living, that's surviving. And Bruce Lee's entire philosophy was about living fully, embracing your truth with total intensity, because life is too short to live halfway. When you choose yourself, you start to experience peace that no external approval can provide. You make decisions based on clarity, not pressure. You take care of your body because it carries your purpose. You choose silence over gossip, solitude over chaos, and truth over comfort. This doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means you become strong enough to face it. You stop running from your feelings and you start mastering them. You stop fearing change and you start flowing with it. Like water, you move freely, not resisting, but adapting with grace. Freedom is not found in doing whatever you want. It's found in knowing exactly who you are and living by it unapologetically. When you live by your truth, you no longer chase acceptance, because you've already accepted yourself. You no longer need control because you found peace in surrender. You no longer beg for love because you've learned to give it to yourself first. That's what Bruce Lee meant when he said, "Be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself." Choosing yourself also transforms your relationships. When you live authentically, you attract authenticity. The people who remain in your life are the ones who love you for who you are, not what you can offer. You no longer need to wear masks or play roles. You begin to experience real connection, not the kind built on dependency, but on mutual respect. The right people will not be intimidated by your self-respect. They will be inspired by it. There's a calm power that comes with living in alignment. You stop explaining your choices to those who don't understand. You stop defending your worth to those who can't see it. You stop running after those who keep walking away. You realize that not everything lost is a loss. Sometimes it's the universe clearing space for something better. That's the beauty of freedom. It strips away everything false until only truth remains. And yes, freedom can feel lonely at first. When you start choosing yourself, not everyone will applaud. Some will call you selfish, cold, or distant. But that's only because your boundaries expose their comfort zones. Don't let their opinions shake your foundation. Every great soul, from Bruce Lee to Rumi, walked alone for a time. Because before you can lead others, you must learn to walk your own path with courage. Choosing yourself is the most spiritual act of rebellion. It means you've stopped begging for peace and started creating it. It means you've stopped chasing love and started being it. It means you've stopped searching for approval and started trusting your own soul. You begin to realize that the world outside can only reflect the world inside. And when you choose yourself, you build a world that feels like home. So stop waiting for someone to give you permission to be free. Stop waiting for the right moment, the right people, or the right approval. Freedom begins the moment you say, "Enough, I choose me." You are not being selfish. You are being real. You are honoring the divine responsibility of becoming who you were meant to be. As Bruce Lee said, the key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering. That life begins when you choose yourself, not out of arrogance, but out of love. Because when you choose yourself, you rise above fear, above expectation, above conformity. You become untouchable, not because you're alone, but because you're finally whole. That is the highest form of freedom, the freedom to be exactly who you are and to live each moment from the truth of your soul. 8. When you stop pleasing, you start evolving. The greatest transformation in life doesn't happen when you achieve success or gain recognition. It happens when you stop living for approval. Because the moment you stop pleasing others, you stop shrinking to fit into their expectations. You finally begin to expand into the person you were always meant to be. Bruce Lee once said, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." When you stop living through the lens of others, you begin to truly see yourself. That's when evolution begins. Not the kind that changes your body or your status, but the kind that changes your soul. For most people, the habit of pleasing others starts from childhood. We learn early that being liked feels safe and being disliked feels dangerous. So we develop survival habits. We smile even when we're hurt, agree when we disagree, stay silent when we should speak, and apologize for existing just to keep the peace. These habits make us accepted by society, but disconnected from ourselves. And that disconnection is what causes deep unhappiness. Because no matter how many people love the version of you that you show them, deep down you know it's not the real you. Bruce Lee taught that authenticity is the highest form of intelligence. To live truthfully requires courage, the courage to be misunderstood, to walk alone, to say no, and to follow your intuition even when no one else understands it. When you stop pleasing others, you begin to make decisions based on your values instead of their validation. That shift is where real growth happens. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You begin to ask, what do I truly want? What feels right for me? These questions open doors that you never knew existed. Doors to strength, purpose, and clarity. But here's the thing, when you stop pleasing everyone, you will lose people. Some will drift away, some will accuse you of changing, some will say you've become selfish or cold. Let them. Their reaction is proof that your boundaries are working. You're no longer feeding the patterns that kept them comfortable. Bruce Lee understood this deeply. He faced criticism from traditionalists, skeptics, and even friends who thought his ideas were too radical, but he refused to let their opinions dictate his vision. He once said, "If you love life, don't waste time, for time is what life is made of." and time spent pretending is time wasted. When you stop pleasing others, something incredible happens. Your mind becomes quiet. You're no longer constantly calculating what others might think or say. You stop performing and start being. That mental stillness gives birth to self-awareness. You start noticing what drains your spirit and what nourishes it. You begin to trust your instincts again. That's how you evolve, not by adding more, but by removing what's fake. You stop chasing approval and start chasing truth. You realize that evolution is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you really are beneath all the masks. Bruce Lee's concept of the empty cup perfectly captures this. He said, "Empty your cup so that it may be filled. Become devoid to gain totality." In other words, to grow, you must unlearn the behaviors that keep you small. You must empty yourself of fear, guilt, and the constant need for approval. Only then can you fill your life with authenticity, confidence, and peace. When you stop pleasing, you stop pretending. And that emptiness becomes space for evolution. People often confuse peace with comfort, but they are not the same. Pleasing others brings comfort, short, shallow, and fragile. But choosing yourself brings peace, deep, lasting, and unshakable. Comfort keeps you where you are. Peace pulls you toward who you can become. Evolution is uncomfortable at first because it requires change. It requires you to walk away from familiar patterns, familiar people, and familiar lies. But once you begin walking, you'll realize that the fear of losing others was just an illusion, because you're not losing anything real. You're shedding what never belonged to you. When you stop living for others, your inner world transforms. Your confidence grows, not from arrogance, but from clarity. You stop comparing your journey to anyone else's because you finally understand that your path is unique. You stop apologizing for your standards, your silence, your solitude. You begin to see rejection not as failure, but as redirection, the universe's way of guiding you toward alignment. Bruce Lee embodied this truth when he broke barriers in martial arts and Hollywood. He didn't fit into anyone's mold, so he built his own. That's the power of evolution. When you refuse to fit in, you start to stand out. And the irony is, when you stop pleasing others, you actually become more valuable to them because you're no longer giving from fear or desperation. You're giving from authenticity. Your words carry more weight because they come from honesty. Your presence feels more peaceful because it's grounded in truth. People start to respect you, even those who once misunderstood you, because they can sense your integrity. This is what Bruce Lee meant when he said, "Be like water. Water flows freely, shaping itself without losing itself. It adapts, but it never pretends. When you stop pleasing others, you become like water, calm but powerful, soft but unbreakable, adaptable, yet always true to your essence. You no longer resist life, you move with it. You learn that not everyone needs to understand your journey, and that's perfectly okay, because you finally understand it yourself. Evolution begins when fear ends, and fear ends when you stop needing to be liked. You are not here to be perfect, you are here to be real. You are not here to please everyone, you are here to grow, to evolve, to expand your consciousness beyond the limits of others' opinions. So stop bending to make others comfortable. Stop editing your soul to be liked by people who don't even know who they are. Start standing tall in your truth. Start living a life that feels honest, peaceful, and full. Because the moment you stop pleasing everyone, you stop living a lie. And when that happens, you won't just change, you'll evolve. You'll rise into a version of yourself that is lighter, stronger, freer, and infinitely more alive. Bruce Lee's legacy wasn't just about fighting, it was about freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from conformity, freedom from limitation. And that's what happens when you stop pleasing others. You stop fighting for space in someone else's world and begin creating your own. You stop existing to be seen and start living to be real. That is true evolution, the kind that turns a person into their highest self, the kind that transforms life into art, and the kind that sets your spirit free forever. Life becomes infinitely lighter the day you stop living for applause and start living for truth. You realize that no amount of approval can fill the emptiness that comes from betraying yourself. Bruce Lee understood this, that the path of greatness is not about being accepted by others, but about being aligned with yourself. He lived as proof that authenticity is the ultimate strength, that peace comes when you no longer need to perform, and that true confidence is born from self-respect, not validation. When you choose yourself, you take back your power from every person, opinion, and expectation that once controlled you. You stop chasing people who don't see your worth. You stop explaining your soul to those committed to misunderstanding it. You begin to walk differently, not because you've become arrogant, but because you've become grounded. You move through life with quiet certainty, knowing that you no longer need permission to exist as you are. That's when your life truly transforms. Bruce Lee once said, "The more we value things, the less we value ourselves." Most people spend their entire lives trying to collect the approval of others, likes, praise, recognition, but they forget to value their own spirit. Choosing yourself means reversing that. It means valuing your peace over popularity, your truth over attention, your purpose over comfort, because the truth is, you can't inspire others by being who they want you to be. You inspire them by being who you are, fully and unapologetically. Freedom doesn't come from being accepted by the world. It comes from accepting yourself completely. It comes from looking in the mirror and realizing that you no longer need to play a role, no longer need to chase validation, no longer need to explain your choices. You've outgrown the need to fit in now. You simply belong to yourself. So stop trying to please everyone. You were not born to be liked. You were born to be real. You were not meant to live small so others could feel comfortable. You were meant to rise, to evolve, to lead, to shine. The more you choose yourself, the more light you bring to the world, because people don't need another version of what's popular. They need the power of what's true. Be like water, as Bruce Lee said. Flow freely, but never lose yourself. Be kind, but firm. Be humble, but unshakable. Be loving, but strong enough to walk away from what dims your light. In the end, the greatest respect you can ever earn is the respect you give yourself. And when you truly learn that, you'll understand something beautiful. You never needed anyone else's permission to be powerful. You just needed to choose yourself, and that choice will set you free forever.